I guess the best way to put this is that most hosting companies are trying to charge the lowest possible price because the goal is to have a low sticker price to make the typical or the average buyer happy. But with that comes a bunch of downstream consequences. Those consequences are that if you don't charge accordingly, then you can't afford to do all the things that you ought to do. You have to afford what you can afford, or you have to try to sell at such a volume that you can kind of obscure the fact that you're not charging appropriately. So there's a lot of things that you wind up having to do to basically cut corners. You're going to have to buy cheaper quality hardware, older hardware, less reliable hardware. You're going to have to hire less expensive help, which means that your priority becomes the cost, the salary, as opposed to the quality of the hire. You're going to wind up having to perhaps layer the support with several different layers of abstraction to keep people from talking with the more expensive folks. You're going to have long lines and queues because essentially you've overcrowded things. So if you call into support, you're going to wind up waiting forever because you're competing with all the other people who are having issues. At the same time, because you're also using lower quality hardware, you also have more issues. So it's kind of a double dip on the negative there because you have both more issues and more time waiting to solve issues because you have more people calling in with issues. And that's all kind of collectively tied into just prioritizing low price above everything else. And so when I say that prioritizing or doing minimums instead of maximums, it's all encapsulating with the way that you're running the hosting. On the flip side of that, if you're charging accordingly, you can reverse all of that, where you're trying to prioritize the best quality of service, the lowest amount of competition with other customers. So you've got fewer people sharing the slice of the pie that is the hardware that's powering the hosting. You've got more availability on each support rep to each customer that's calling in because you're using better quality or newer hardware. You're also dealing with fewer issues. You can afford to put time into R&D for things like improving stability, improving security, improving the performance overall. That also prevents problems before they ever happen. And so you find yourself in a situation where it's the reverse of the negative spiral. Instead of having more and more problems because you're prioritizing price over everything, if you're instead prioritizing quality, you have fewer and fewer problems while providing maximally optimal experience to the customer. And then ultimately even taking it steps further beyond that to start absorbing problems that aren't actually specific to the hosting. They're tangential to the hosting. They're stuff that your average site owner is going to see and think, well, this might have something to do with hosting. But anybody who's actually in the hosting business knows that's really something off to the side from hosting. That doesn't mean you can't help with it, that you don't know anything about it. Ideally, if we're doing our job right to provide maximums, we're trying to help people solve the whole problem that they're looking at, not just the small piece of the problem that they say they've delegated to us.